we always say there is, a selling muscle and there is a recruiting, developing muscle. You want to get good at both of those.
You have reinvented yourself multiple times this year. That is a testament to your diligence, but also your fortitude.
We all have goals. We all want to make it somewhere in this business. So being able to have that relationship on Zoom really does help people.
Thank you for joining us on our Family First Life Tri-State Serve the People podcast. We appreciate you tuning in, spending your time to develop and grow with us. Follow us, please, on all our social media platforms at Family First Life Tri-State or FFL Tri-State. We love you. Keep listening, and I hope this information is serving you across the country.
All right, everybody, thank you for jumping on with us for our Training Day podcast. I got my girl, Katelynn Blackburn, who's just a beast at a lot of things, but sells a ton of insurance. It's Hall of Fame, I think for the second year in a row, maybe third, but she's crushing it. FFL Diligence, Senior Vice President, on her way to very close to EVP, so I'm looking forward to you cracking that by the end of the year, Katelynn. But I've gotten a chance to get to know you throughout the course of this year and just watch your growth track, look at some of the things you're doing, see the way you lead, and see your, I was just about to say diligence, and I realized you called yourself FFL Diligence. I think that's a really good word to describe you, your persistence, just the positive nature in which you roll. And in talking to Bowen said you're a cornerstone of his organization. He basically said, hey, without you, there would be he would not have an agency. I know that's a little dramatic, but I don't think he overstated it, because it sounds to me like you're the glue that keeps a lot of things together. And every time I talk to you, I leave more encouraged. So I wanted to bring you on to the podcast to get to know a little bit more about the way you're doing things with you, your group, your agency. And I'm excited to have you on. But how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks, Mark, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you. And thank you for jumping on with us. You've had quite the year. We are entering into really the stretch run, if you will. I mean, things are being wrapped up here, and we are trying to put bow ties on all this hard work and planning that we've done throughout the year. But you've seen a lot of different things this year. If you could walk us down a path of a little bit on how you set out the year and some of the adjustments and adaptations you had to make as the year went on, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So we're now in November. Looking back to January of this year, my business was a lot of in-home. It was a structured in-home business for myself, for new agents coming in. And about summertime is when I started making that transition into a hybrid system a little bit more, getting used to telesales and going through the learning curve of what that was going to look like for our agency. So by doing that, there's been major things that have changed within our organization because we do have access to telesales as well. Is that now I'm able to really be more present with a lot of the agents that I'm bringing on. If you are on Zoom, you can have everybody from all over the world be right in front of you.
Nice.
Watch you present, watch them present, help them with their presentation, help them with certain, objections or like the rebuttals that they need to be perfecting. You can help people that way a lot easier than only in home. You can only take one person in the home with you. So, being able to have that opportunity to do telesales has really grown our agency, and it's also grown our culture. So that's one thing that I'm super appreciative of. And all the people that I have been bringing in recently, it's been very, very cool to see how we can map out goals over Zoom and really develop the agent into, the agent that they want to be when they do start this business. We all have goals. We all want to make it somewhere in this business. So being able to have that relationship on Zoom really does help people. And I do think that anybody that may be on the fence of, going virtual, you might want to give it a shot. There may be a learning curve at the beginning, but just like anything in this business, if you try hard enough and you stay consistent, you will make it work for you.
I love it. And, you talk about the adjustment. Well, you talked about the transition from in-home to telesales. I remember when you were battling with that. I remember you having the same setup you have now, but running in the field and then doing like a Monday, Thursday deal with your team. And I'm assuming at some point you kind of figured it would be more effective if you went all in on telesales. Would that be accurate?
And I battled with that for a while. Just
remember.
going back and forth, being like, I really love my in-home because I really enjoy. I do. I really enjoy meeting clients face to face. I really do think that like that's what this business was built off of, was in-home, and I was sticking to the books as soon as I came into this business. But when it came to the effectiveness of growing a business and creating a culture for our organization, virtual was a no-brainer. I just had to make that transition no matter how hard it was going to be. And now I have figured out a schedule that works. And if I want to run in-home, I still can. I just don't do it as much. Like if I have a Saturday where I'm going meeting some agents out in a different area and they want to check out in home because they've never done it before, I have no problem with going in the home with them on a Saturday when, the phones are a little bit slower. Agents don't need as much that day and there's less onboarding going on. So that is a day where you can still incorporate in home. Telesales is just a great way to be able to be effective in all areas of your business. We always say there is, a selling muscle and there is a recruiting, developing muscle. You want to get good at both of those. It's very difficult to be in the field while you're trying to develop agents at the same time because you are literally in the field, like driving around, going from house to house. It's like when I'm on Zoom, I can unmute when I am on a presentation. I can hear other people's presentations. I can unmute myself and help them in a presentation. It gives so much more diversity to be able to actually help an agent become successful. So that was really the, turning point for our business and something that I just came to terms with that was going to be most beneficial for everybody. And that's really what this is about.
I love it. That's a big step in leadership as well. Your ability to go, wait, all these people, it would be easier if I'm going to make this sacrifice. So now you made the sacrifice, you made the transition, and then you made the adjustment. What was that adjustment period like for you, trying to learn, that process? I mean, it's all insurance, in-home or over the phone, but I think we could both agree there's some small nuanced changes. What were those changes? And then what was that adjustment period like for you?
Yeah, this is a good one for me because the adjustment period wasn't always easy. And it's because when you are doing in-home, for me at least, in-home became so fluid and it became so quick and very like I could do it in my sleep. I mean, I felt like the credibility was there from the get-go. I walked in the door. It's just the way that I present myself, the way that people feel around me when I do take control of the situation. We're going to the table. We're going to talk about something that's really, really important and something that you need to get in place for your family today. It was very, it just seemed very, I guess, fluid when I was in the home. And when I was transitioning over to telesales, the biggest thing that I was noticing is that my patience wasn't there like it needed to be on over the phone. So what I was doing at first and why I struggled during that learning curve was when I was in home, I didn't necessarily have to prove that I was a real person. I didn't necessarily have to prove that I had a license. I didn't have to prove that I worked with all of these carriers. Everything was right in front of them. If they had questions, I could sit there and, be like, Mary, this is my license. If you want to, let's go look me up right now. I'm sitting here in front of your house. I can help you, with that. But over the phone, it's just different. So it's like I was approaching it the same way I was approaching in home, and it didn't work at first. And I would get frustrated. I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And really, it just came down to, I was trying to rush people into, this presentation over the phone. And that wasn't necessarily the way to go about it when you're doing telesales. First thing that you need to do is realize you have to be patient with yourself and the client. So explain, give them the rapport at the very beginning, and be very, very clear in what you're doing, why you're calling them, what you're, set out to do by giving them options for their insurance, and also being very clear that this is what it's for. I mean, I see a lot of agents like struggle over the phone because maybe halfway through the presentation, the client may not even know what we're talking about. It's like, we need to be very clear at the beginning of the presentation that I am, my name is Katelynn. I work as an insurance broker. I'm licensed through 50 different states. My job today is really to go over the different options that you may qualify for based on your health and based on your budget. So what we do is we're going to run through medical, financial questions, see where you stand with those things. Based on how you answer those questions, it'll really help me place you in the best position. This is, Mary, something for your funeral final expense. This is one of the most important bills that you're going to have each month coming in, because on the day that you most need it, it's going to be there for your family. So explaining those things even more in depth when you're not in person with them. It's very important. Making sure that they're fully aware of what's going on when you are talking them over the phone, so that they can trust you and trust that you are, you're asking for sensitive information, and there's reasons why we do that. And we do need that information for obvious reasons, but they may not know because they don't know who you are. You're just randomly calling them out of the blue. They're like, yeah, I remember filling out that survey, but who are you? Like, you would really just have to be a little more patient with it, which I had to learn, which is something that, like, it comes with like the learning curve, but it's definitely doable for anybody that is thinking about making that transition for their organization.
So let's talk about that a little bit. The patience, the fact that you're just a voice, you're not a face. So there's not two forms of communication, there's one. So where in the home you can use body language and facial expressions as well as verbal communication to get your points across, and over the phone you only have your verbal communication. So what are some things that you felt like you had to slow down on, and like give me an example of how you would slow down on it?
So tonality is really important over the phone, the way that you present yourself with your voice. And certain things that I had to slow down on were obviously explaining myself at the beginning of the presentation, talking a little bit slower, because sometimes when I would get on the phone, I would be jump into the application before they even knew what I was calling them for, So it's like I had to slow down and explain who I was. And I actually had a few clients tell me that too, which made me be like, okay, I really need to work on that. They were like, can you just talk a little slower? And I was like, okay, yeah, like I get it. I must be rushing this, and I need to slow it down just a bit, because the clientele that we're talking to, at least for me, I do a lot of final expense. It's the bread and butter of my business. And we are talking to people that are a little bit older, and they may not be able to hear or understand as much. So you do have to be courteous to what their situation is as well. So I would, say the pace of your voice is very important. So like, hey, Mark, my name is Katelynn. I'm calling about that survey that you had filled out online regarding the state regulated final expense programs. My job as an underwriter is just to provide you with that information. They simplified the entire process for us. We can actually take care of this over the phone in about 10 to 15 minutes. Go ahead and grab a pen and paper for me so we can knock this out. Slower the better. And then it also keeps you calm. Your body language on the phone is also very important, even though they can't see you, because I notice different agents when they get excited, or they get a little bit, don't know what to say. They're like jumping over here, and they're like leaning into the computer, and it's like all these movements. It's like, I am just sitting in my chair. I am calm, collective. I am talking to this client. You have to do that. It like tricks your brain into being more patient. It really does. It tricks yourself into that. So the patience is really important. The tonality in your voice. I can get really excited about what we do here. I absolutely love this business. So there are times when I really have to calm myself down a bit. So I definitely know that feeling after you have some Red Bulls in your system and you're ready to, hit those guns.
Is Red Bull a prerequisite? Do we need to notate that? I need to put a check mark on the Red Bull. Got it.
Yeah, it's like slow down on the Red Bulls a little bit so that you can slow your voice down so that people can really understand why you're calling them and what you're set out to do with serving their family. So that would be the biggest thing I could tell anybody that's new or trying to make the transition to virtual is slow your tone down, be a little more patient, and learn how to really take the sales pressure off of the other person on the phone, because we're here just to provide information and they can feel you. They know what you're doing over there on the other side of the phone. They can feel your
I love it, man. That's so descriptive. And it is true, it's just amazing. I mean, I did mortgages over the phone for 10 years, more of a 3-week sales cycle. I was probably one of my biggest challenges starting in this business is trying to do everything in one shot. And that was a transition for me, but I was at home. Going back to the phones and helping people over the phones again in one shot, the transitions, the movements, I can appreciate your ability to say, hey, slow it down. When does it start to get tricky for someone new getting on the phones? In other words, from financial inventory to presenting numbers and then actually closing the sale with banking information and the policy getting approved and them agreeing to the approval. Where do you start that at? And then how do you navigate the client through that?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So when I am getting into after the financial inventory sheet and I'm getting into the options that they may qualify for, I'm going to start asking them some questions, verify the information that I already have. And then when I start asking for information that is more sensitive to them, I am preparing them for that in the way of saying, I've gone through their address, their state of birth, their height and weight, all of that information. Then I say, so Mark, for your prescription check, your social, do you have that memorized?
Love,
And then
wow.
they are like, do you have that memorized? That helps. If they give you like no, I don't feel comfortable with that, I say, you have to be very calm. We're just trying to help them. What I say is, Mark, I completely understand. We are over the phone. That's the reason I sent you over my license. The social security number is just simply used for your MIB. It's the Medical Information Bureau. They're going to take a look at your prescriptions, verify that you are as healthy as you're telling me so that we can look at some accurate options for your family and yourself. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes. And you can get past that objection, because I like to think of it this way too, is that I don't necessarily think that social or banking over the phone is an objection. I think it's more of a question, and we're thinking it in our mind that it's some kind of objection. It really just is a question. They may really want to know, and maybe you didn't provide enough information from the beginning that they would need that. So it's your job to make them feel comfortable with giving that information over the phone. And that's where I simply say, Mark, this is what it's for. This is why I need it. This is why the insurance carrier needs it. And it's for your best interest, because we do need to find something that you're going to be eligible for. And this is the only way we're going to be able to do that.
I love it. So transition them right on through. And let's go to the presentation of the numbers. What are you doing to get people to make a decision on the actual premium that they're going to request for the coverage?
So what I do once I get through all of the information, then I am doing the same thing I do in home. I say, Mark, can you go ahead and grab a pen and paper for me? We're going to map out 3 different options that make the most sense to me based on everything that you told me and your wishes. And what we'll do is we'll pick one to submit to the carrier to see if you're eligible for it. And then I go ahead and have them grab a pen and paper. I'm going to have you write down 20,000 at the top of your page, 25,000 and 30,000. And I go very slow. And then underneath the 20,000, I'm going to have you do $84. Underneath the 30,000, I'm going to have you write 104. Under the 30,000, I'm going to have you write down 132. Now, Mark, these are 3 different whole life options. What that means for you is it's something that's permanent and will never expire on you. This will be there for the rest of your life. And most importantly, the day that you do pass away, this will be in place for you. So based on these 3 options, which one makes the most sense to you to see if you can even qualify for it? Then they pick one. Once they pick one, I go into beneficiary information. And then I always let them know that we're going to submit for the $84. And then, Mark, if you do get approved for this, you're always going to work with me. So that means that if you ever want to move this up or down, you can definitely do that. Just give me a call and we can make those adjustments. And then I say, before I get banking, I ask, in the event of you getting approved for this policy, when would you want this to start? And then they tell you. You have to be upfront with them. It's been something that I have had to learn in my business, especially with banking and with getting the draft date from them. You just have to ask, when would you like this to start? Some of them will say immediately. Some of them will say, well, I need to fit it into my budget, so maybe a couple weeks. And so what I'll say is, most important thing is getting this in place as soon as possible. So what I can do is the first draft will come out within the first 3 days. And then from there, we can go ahead and make adjustments to the date that you want it pooled on a monthly basis. Does that sound fair? Yes. Okay. And then once they've made that decision, I'm asking for banking. Typically what I do with banking is I am going to ask them if they bank locally. They're going to tell me who they bank through. I'm going to look up the routing number. And then I'm going to have the routing number in front of me. And I'm going to say, okay, Mark, it looks like the carrier that we're choosing here does partner with Chase Bank. I have the routing number pulled up here. I do need you to grab something for me to verify I have the correct one. They go ahead and grab it. I verify the information. And then they go ahead and I say, account number. And then if they give me any kind of objection on the account number, I am just plain as day. Well, Mark, they do need to know that you do have a legal bank account in the US that's not associated with any type of fraud, money laundering, or anything like that. And of course, if you were to be approved, the carrier does spend hundreds of dollars to underwrite your policy. We just want to make sure that you do have a legal form of payment to process the policy. Does that all make sense? They typically do understand. And that's the reason I ask them before I get banking when they want it to start. Because by that point, you're not going to get so many objections because you've already been upfront with them that I'm just asking you, Mark, when do you want this to start? Instead of it being some surprise for them, Right. It's like, make sure that you're being upfront with people because then they're going to be transparent with you. Once you get all of that information, the last thing that I'm talking about before we finish the signatures are, Mark, this is going to be one of the most important bills you have every single month. I want to make sure before we finish signing this and submit this over to the carrier, I want to make sure that this is something that's doable for you every single month, because the worst thing is this not being in place when that day does come. So do you think that $84 is going to be sustainable every single month? And then they'll tell me. If they say, I don't know, then I say, well, why don't we drop it down a little bit to the $64 plan for now? If you want to move it up later when finances change, we can always do so. Does that make sense? Yes. So those little techniques in telesales and in home, I think can be a really big make it or break it for client retention, and also just making sure that you are being transparent with the client and when they're going to be charged, because I know that new agents sometimes struggle with it. It's something I struggled with when I was brand new. It made me nervous, and there's nothing to be nervous about. We're providing them with something that they need.
No doubt. Now, you talk about retention. What are you doing in that after all that's done now? You're trying to now make sure you secure the policy and that the client's happy with the policy and they're going to keep the policy. What are some of your what are some things you do for that to secure the sale?
So once I've submitted the application, I let them know that they should be receiving a packet in the mail shortly. Once they get that packet in the mail, if they have any questions on it, they can go ahead and give me a call and I can review it with them. If they don't, just keep that in a safe spot and make sure your beneficiary knows who I am so that they can, work with me when that day does come. The other thing that I will do if we're dealing with a client that everyone's different. And that's what we have to realize, that every client we talk to is going to be different when it comes to the phones, in home, whatever that may be. Whatever is going to make them feel the most comfortable is what I'm going to do. So if they to me came off of somebody that wants reassurance, that wants to know when the packet's coming in the mail, wants to know all of that, then I do have an admin. She does help me, and she will go ahead and text the client from my office let them know the policy number, let them know the beneficiary, the draft date, and the amount that's going to be taken, and the reason why they got the policy in place. So it's a text message that's sent out from just our office phone, and it is sent over to the customer, and it says Mark Mead, Americo Eagle Premier, $20,084, draft date 11/20, beneficiary Robin Mead. And then we go ahead and put down why you got that in place. Mark got this in place today to ensure that he doesn't leave a burden behind for his family, or whatever they had told you. Because if you remember that enough, you can send that over to them. And then what I think is that if they were ever going to call me about their policy, they're going to read that first. And then when I answer my phone and ask them why they, want to drop it or why they want to lower the price, then I can go ahead and say, well, Mark, remember when we were on the phone, we got this in place originally. The reason was because you wanted to make sure that your wife wasn't left with that burden. What has changed? And is there anything that I can do to help you keep this policy in place so that it is there when that day comes? All of those things can definitely help. And you want to just be very, very diligent. I use that word a lot when it comes to
I love
when
it
it comes to client like retention and client follow up. So as long as they know that they can reach out to you, they are going to reach out to you before they reach out to anybody else about their policy. Especially with telesales, that's one thing that you really, really want to build that rapport and build that like trust with them, that they can go ahead and reach out to you at any time if they need to make adjustments to it.
I love it. When you think about new agents, you talked a little about new agents and their frustration and them getting acclimated to this process through Zoom, through tele. What is your onboarding process for new agents, and what are some of the ongoing trainings that you have in place so that people can get acclimated fully and become elite producers?
Definitely. So my onboarding process, when we do onboard agents and anybody that is going to work with us, we are very, very good at figuring out what their goals are and whether or not they do see themselves doing telesales or in-home, so that we can structure out a schedule that will work for them best. Also, Zoom it's a must. I mean, if you can't show up on Zoom and you can't be there, then it's very, very hard to help you. So it is something that I do, I expect that at the beginning, is to at least get on Zoom so that I can one-on-one train you for at least a week, or until you feel like you are, confident enough to do this on your own. And that's something that's really, really helped, because it's been able to develop agents and also have them set goals where I can actually show them and map out what that's going to look like for them if they want to hit that goal. Like a realistic goal. You want to hit 30K this month. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to come alongside you. I'm going to help you with this. You're going to do it, but I'm going to come alongside you, and I'm going to be here to kind of, help you get to that spot. Once they get there, it's incredible what they can do then. It's duplication. They can do it with somebody else. And that's been very, very important. And the culture that's built with that is also insane. Like the way that our team gets on every day at 8 a.m. Pacific, and we do role play for an hour on Zoom. And the culture, there's music in the background when we first start. We have new agents on there. We role play back and forth. That gets you so ready for dialing, and then we'll count down to dial session. So we'll be like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, hit dial session, and then the phones start ringing. So that kind of culture can really help, because sometimes it does just come down to somebody has a hard time starting their dial session that day. We all have different things going on in our life, but if you show up to that Zoom, you'll be in the mood to hit those phones hard, and it can be a really, really fun environment. So that's something that I think is a absolute must for anybody that is brand new. And then from there, once you feel pretty confident, independent, you can obviously duplicate the same exact thing with the people that you are coming alongside and helping, and be a part of the culture that we currently have.
Man, that's so awesome. I mean, just a lot of nuggets here, a lot of things you're doing to be successful. Katelynn, what is the date for FFL Diligence and board member?
Board member, let's see.
Let's go.
The date is going to be my birthday next year. So that's
Whoa.
April 28th, 2023. That's
Woo!
the date.
It's already
It's on my
established.
birthday.
April is the month.
Established, started happening.
Huh?
It's a celebration. It's already happening. It's on the day.
Let's go. I love it,
The
man.
IP comes out that day.
Is that the day? So
We'll just say it.
I love it. You are electric. You have so much energy and momentum. Things are going in the right direction. You have reinvented yourself multiple times this year. That is a testament to your diligence, but also your fortitude, your ability to rush, your ability to stick, your ability to continue to grow and change and not let anything be daunting to you. I really respect you and respect that about you, and I appreciate you taking the time to jump on with us today.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate our friendship, our business partnership, everything like that. Like, you've helped me so much, and I can't thank you enough.
You're a beast. Thank you so much for jumping on. Training day, baby. Katelynn Blackburn, crushing it. God bless. Keep listening.